I would only like to start with a little comment. I really like the seasonal tendency lecture from today. It was straight to the point, not complicated, and just looking back at the first weeks and what should be expected, but also when it doesn't do it, explaining very clearly that then that's a sign of more bearishness. I thought it was a great video. Just dropping that little comment.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And let me just add one more caveat to that. There's a lot of things in trading, even with my stuff, that it may seem like, okay, if a bullish fair value gap forms and price comes down into that, then obviously the neophyte brand new student would expect it to send price higher, not realizing there's a dependency on the premise or the bullish nature behind price supporting that PD array. It's not just simply, I'm an up closed candle and I'm all by myself sitting here. I'm going to support the entirety of the market going forward. There's a lot of things that have to go together. But that when you eventually learned, there's inversion aspects to that. So if they fail to utilize their first presentation or their first utilization, in other words, if it's a buy side delivery and it's a bullish market, then obviously we would want to see price stay in the upper half of that and not lay a body down in the lower half and then send price higher. That's the normal reasonable expectation. But if it fails, that's not well, this stuff doesn't work. That's greater insight, because if it fails to support price and when you're expecting it to be bullish, it's giving you an immediate feedback for sentiment purposes that, okay, maybe this is a good short. And you either course correct or stand aside. In seasonal tendencies, it's even stronger when a seasonal tendency is not actually forming when it should. And the energies has always been a really strong seasonal tendency. If you go back and look at data prior to COVID years, you'll see what I stated was it's just a very strong, it's really strong, almost like when we used to have egg futures, and they traded before I was a trader. But when you think egg futures would go up in the United States, in our U.S. market, what time of the year do you think it would go up? Easter, right? Because everybody's hard boiling eggs and whatnot. And roasters used to be a commodity. And when it would go up around the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas. So nobody would want to buy them all up until that time of year. And it became such a strong seasonal tendency, nobody had volume or interest in trading it until it got to those times. So they just did away with them. So seasonal tendencies, in short, are wonderful tools. They're not panaceas. They're not be-all, end-all. But when they don't materialize, they are very much indicating that the opposite is most likely going to unfold. So your probability shoot from, it could go up if my technicals are agreeing with the seasonal tendency being bullish. But if it's not going up, now we jump to 85% probability that it's going the opposite direction. And that's just a real wonderful benefit to knowing what should happen. And when it doesn't, don't get frustrated and say, oh, I'm giving up on this stuff. It's telling you something else. You got to turn it upside down and go the other direction.
And anyway, when we stack probabilities, Michael, right, it can actually really work to our favor when, for example, it was weak at the 0.382, right? And then that was very clear that it didn't want to have the body close. The order flow wasn't there. So it meant that there was an even further probability that it was going to do the opposite, right? Or do what you would anticipate.
Are you referring to the trade I just did?
Yes, I'm referring to the trades you took, the order flow and the octants, and where order flow did not choose to breach and close above. That's a big tell for you, right? I mean, for all of us, but for any trader, as much as we want to see the probability of something happening when it doesn't happen, if there is a probability to that occurring, then as you're saying, it flips on its head. So if it's that gets even stronger for the trader when they know what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Knowing what you're looking for, and then the characteristics upon which it either supports price going in your favor or if it negates it, there's not enough work done in that.
I lost you, Michael.
Anyway, what I was saying is if in very short, succinct manner, seasonal tendencies, wonderful, great, but not just in seasonal tendencies, but understanding that I don't think there's enough done in the industry where educators, because I don't think they know it really. They teach this idea of Go, go, go. I mean, think about the expression. Let's fucking go. Let's get out there and let's go. Let's go. Okay, that's great. I appreciate the enthusiasm. But once we're out here and we're in the deep waters, what happens when we don't see things going our way? We get caught in the riptide. We get, we see fins circling us. It doesn't sound like it's all that fun anymore. What do? You have to have protocols and processes. And by having these things determine a outlook on price action, a PD array, a seasonal tendency, a time of day, if things in your model say this is what price should do, and you subscribe to that view, if it doesn't pan out or it starts showing signs that it's not doing what you thought it was going to do, you have to have some kind of management process for yourself. Because the worst thing you can do is get wrapped up in the emotion and start praying, oh, market gods, help me turn this around. Please don't let me get stopped again. Let me get my combine pass. Let me get my payout. None of that stuff's going to work. I promise you, there is no God out there that's listening to you and say, okay, well, I'm going to stress the candle just for you today. I'm not going to hit your stop loss today. Okay. You have to manage your positions. You have to do those things. And you have to recognize the telltale signs that what you believed when you got into the trade, and maybe it looked like it was there for a little while, if it's changed, if it's shifted out of favor for you, you need to be able to recognize that. And I can tell you that is not a skill set that's easily and quickly learned. You have to be in this industry, in this game, doing it a long period of time before you acquire that. No one can transfer that information to you. You can't go through a 5-minute trainer mentorship. Nobody out there, I don't care how much money they show you in broker statements, they're never going to be able to transpose that information and experience into you. That's the expensive part about trading, the experience. It costs you time. And some of us is going to spend, a lot more time than others. And then you can be mad about that and think it's cruel. It's not fair. Why do I got to spend more time learning all this stuff? Because it's you. You're in the way. You don't realize you're doing it until you get there and you're successful. You look back, you know what? If I was being honest, I really was expecting too much too soon. And I didn't have all the experience, because that's what happened with me. And the painful lessons, I finally woke up and said, you know what? What do I keep doing wrong? And what am I pushing through into these danger areas where I'm wrecking myself? What are those things that keep reoccurring? And it's how I was thinking, what I was doing about the trade idea not running in my favor, or showing signs that it's really not likely to do what I thought it was going to do. It's just petering around and staying inside this small little consolidation. Do I bail? Do I cut bait entirely and reverse? Do I take half the position off? Do I take something off? Do I add? And all these things, began to build and give me processes and protocols that I think that more educators should do in their teaching. But I think it's because they don't have the experience being consistent to recognize when inconsistency is now showing itself in the model in the present market conditions. And what do you do then? So anyway, can you hear me? Or did the same thing
Yeah, no,
happen?
we can totally hear you.